I think what we're going to first start off with, Alex and Chris, if you were walking down the street and someone asked you, hey, what the heck is Unity? I keep seeing it everywhere. What would you say? Let's start with Alex.
Cool. Yeah, I would say that we're a movement that is aimed at connecting people across gaps that we have in our society. So there are a lot of people on both sides of the political spectrum who maybe hold some differing opinions, but the majority of their opinions overlap in a really significant way, mainly in the fact that they're just people who want to live their lives and live in the beautiful country and prosperity that we have in this world. And we're a movement that is trying to bring together that majority that's in the middle of both sides of the political spectrum, and connect people to be able to take back our country and not live in this divisive way, and ideally have someone in office who represents the ideals of coming together and learning from each other and growing, moving forwards as a country that's united.
Absolutely. I think the point of, one of the, again, it's in the name, Unity, right? It's trying to bring everyone from all different backgrounds to realize there's a lot more common ground out there than I think a lot of us, especially those that are tied into Twitter or the media, like to think. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I think Unity is just, it's a movement that's basically saying the emperor has no clothes, and everyone can sort of see this. And it's, I think, a commonly held view. And we're all coming together and say we have more in common than we have in differences. And we just need to reaffirm the values that I think we all believe in as Americans, to say, hey, you know what, we can have discussions with nuance, and that we need our discussions to have nuance that match the complexity of the issues we're trying to solve.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I see all the time, when I'm on Twitter or just kind of listening to other people that are exploring Unity for the first time, is what makes Unity different from, say, like another, maybe a third party run, such as the Green Party or so on and so forth. So as team leads, all of us are team leads, right? And what our goal right now is really trying to flesh out the organization and helping us build that groundswell. So
Yeah.
what do you guys think differentiates the Unity movement from, say, the Green Party or other conventional third-party runs? Do you guys feel like this is really a third-party run, or do you think it's something that transcends that structure?
Right. So I think with other parties, right, they have a specific sort of prescription of solutions to problems that they've sort of identified. And I think what makes Unity unique is we're saying there's actually something foundationally that we need to address first, which is we have extreme polarization and we have a current political apparatus that drives that polarization for its own interests. And we're saying, no, we reject this flat out. The choices that we're given now for president are unacceptable. And we can all look at each other and sort of agree to this. And you look at the noise on social media, and no one's happy, right? We're all sort of equivocating for justification of different choices, but we're not gung-ho about these choices. And Unity is saying, no, we should live in a world where people feel good about the choices they're making.
Yeah. I think that there's also a really important point that you bring up, Chris, which is we're looking at a world of social media, and this is kind of this Unity 2020 is rising out of this alternative media space. And I think that I just watched a podcast between Andrew Yang and a guest of his, and I don't remember exactly what his name is at the moment, but they were saying how Facebook seems to be moving towards something more like a country than a platform. It's more, it regulates itself. It has its own kind of set of rules, and it can control what people say, and its algorithms control so many different parts of our minds and our lives, and every part of ourselves. And I think that what's happening in Unity 2020 is actually this kind of emergence of this conversation into the political sphere of us realizing that we have to use this technology and work with this technology that we now are experiencing and interacting with more than we even are outside with the current crisis that's been happening in the world. So there's a real need for that deeper level conversation of, Chris, how we have that conversation and find our commonalities, but there's also a need for a conversation to arise where suddenly the people can take back a large portion of the disproportionate power in government through these alternative media sources, because we can kind of all have a voice now.
So I think it's interesting you bring up that especially over the last like 10 years, right? There's been such this emergence of alternative media and the role of social media in the political system. I think obviously we see in 2016, social media had a massive influence on the 2016 election, right? Both campaigns spent billions of dollars to try and operate different ads and really strategically, right? Do you feel that the role of social media and as a forum of discourse and as a way to bring people together, especially politically, is viable? Because, I mean, a lot of the algorithms that are built, especially on Twitter and other social media platforms, are designed to help people find their own small echo chambers and communities, and often they help drive divisiveness, right? So as the Unity movement, right, before anything, our goal is to help try and reunify this country. How do we fight that inherent systemic component of social media?
Yeah, I think that's a really important. I think that's a really important point, and I think that what we're engaged in is trying to figure out how to do that, and it's almost like we need to use that system in order to be able to have the conversation about that system. Because if there's one thing that we know about the current political duopoly that's in place, and we can unpack that term, it's that they're not having the real conversations about the real problems that exist in the world today. And this, I would say, the social media rising, that's really, if you think about it, the iPhone was released, the first iPhone was released in 2007. It was only what, 13 years ago. That's not a very long time. And the rise of the technology that's extrapolated from that really needs to be addressed in a really real way. And our government has been falling short for a while now in doing that. And so I don't know if I have an answer to your question, but I would say that the answer is that yes, that needs to absolutely be addressed. And I hope that's something that, through using that platform to grow a movement, can be addressed in a much more significant way.
Yeah. Let me take a take at this. So I think culture, language, technology, and politics, they're all a complex adaptive system that have interactions with each other, right? And as one of those things might change, it can change the others a little bit, right? But I do think that they're sort of at different layers of a substrate. So I think culture is more foundational than politics, right? And so I think what we've seen is a degradation in our politics because we've had changes in our culture that we haven't quite figured out how to contend with. And I think technology sort of intermediated that change. But I think, we can talk about social media and saying that, like, oh, people are just angry at each other, and the posts that get shown more are the ones that have more engagement, and people are just getting triggered and responding to the posts that trigger them, right? And so there's, I think, a reckoning that needs to happen there, sort of saying, you know what, I don't need to fight every battle on Facebook with all my friends. Maybe it's just a one-to-one connection I need to develop with someone, and let's have a long-form conversation, right? And I think what's been so great about sort of technology as it pertains to just media and distribution in general is you're seeing these podcasts that are 3 hours long that are just getting incredible engagement, right? And that's really exciting, right? Because we've been saying forever that the public can't pay attention to anything that is long form. And the most popular podcasts in the world are 3 hours plus, right? So I think we're experiencing a lot of changes rapidly in a lot of different dimensions, and we have to sort of contend with that. And one thing that's I think we're really struggling with is we don't have the same institutions that we depended on for sense making, right, on a global scale, right? Like the brands that we used to depend on very heavily for saying this is the general consensus of the way the world is working right now and the shape of things. People have no faith in, not, I don't want to say no faith, but those institutions have completely eroded in terms of their public trust, right? And, we keep talking about fake news now, and fake news is not necessarily this term that means like the news is fake. It means something a little bit more complex than that, and we're still sorting out what that means. And I think until we sort that out, we're still going to have this sort of rub up against people just having completely different views of what is happening. And I think the key to sort of gracefully settling this is reaffirming what does disagreement look like and how do you resolve that, right? What is productive conflict? And there's a lot of literature out there that talks about this. There's a great TED talk on being wrong, and one of the things that the speaker talks about is what does it feel like to be wrong? And you might say, oh, shame or embarrassment, but that's not the feeling of being wrong. That's the feeling of finding out you were wrong. The feeling of being wrong until you find out is the same as being right, right? It's Wile E. Coyote chasing Roadrunner going off the cliff, and before he looks down, he thinks he's fine, right? The minute he looks down, that's when he falls, right? So I think we need to get very good at this. In my day job, I deal with working with teams and reorganizing companies and things like that. And this is one of the key components of making teams good, right? And I think that's what we need to do as a society.